Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Weather Weenies. This week we are coming to you from Wachusett Mountain in north central Massachusetts, a little bit north of Worcester, about an hour from Providence and Boston. A wonderful ski area, 1,000 feet of vertical, and if you're a racer, man, they got racing leagues going for you morning, noon, and night here at Wachusett. Now, before I get to the upcoming weather pattern, I want to dwell upon something I touched on last week as I look back at what happened weather-wise in the last 6 or 7 days. There was a humongous storm in the east. We had a burst of energy in the South Pacific from a thing called a Southern Oscillation Index about 3.5 weeks ago, and that burst of energy worked its way across the Pacific and across North America, and it interacted with a big old trough in the east, spun up one storm last Tuesday and Wednesday. It started to snow in the Catskills and up into northern New England, and then another storm formed down south. Some energy came dumbbelling in, and this storm took one of the strangest paths I have ever seen. It actually went up to about Martha's Vineyard, took a left, went down Long Island and into North Jersey, and then it just sort of meandered around all weekend long. And when the dust settled, and this is for you, Todd Brooker and Johnny Mosley, with your references to eastern ice, we ended up with 84 inches of ice at Hunter Mountain, 60 inches of ice at Windham Mountain in New York, with about 50 inches in Stowe and Bolton Valley, and over 50 inches of ice, Todd Brooker and Johnny Mosley, at Sunday River and Sugarloaf in Maine. It was a monumental storm. It has set up the Northeast, which had been a little short on snow, admittedly, in the last 30 to 45 days. It set them up for the stretch run of the season very, very nicely. Now, to the pattern. We still have a trough in the east, and we had a storm earlier in the week that brought another foot of snow. The same sort of snow that added up to 50-something inches at Sugarloaf and Sunday River and Saddleback. They got another foot on Monday. That trough is going to remain in place, and there's a big trough, a strong one, lurking offshore of the West Coast. Now, it sits there, and all the skiers in the Cascades and the Rockies and the Bitterroots, they get all excited, saying, oh, there's that storm. We need that to come ashore. Well, that thing's been sitting out there for weeks, and occasionally, it sends in some energy, primarily in the southern branch. It gets a little boost from the El Nino, and you get snow down in the central and southern ranges of the west, while in the north, they got a little burst in mid-January, but since then, man, they've basically been high and dry. This trough is going to bring a lot of moisture inland, I believe, early in the week of the 8th. And that's the first time I've been able to say that in a while. So I think these central ranges from southern Idaho and around Jackson Hole into the Wasatch and over into the mountains of Colorado, away from the southern mountains of Colorado, because they've had their fair share of snow this winter. These are the areas that about a week from now, I think, have a fairly good shot at seeing copious amounts of Pacific moisture and upper-level energy combined to give them a meaningful snowfall during the week of the 8th as this trough comes ashore. When that happens, what I think is going to happen is energy is going to actually cut for the lakes, and that's typically a sign of spring. The early winter season, we see storms cut for the lakes, and then late in the season, we see them cut for the lakes, but I don't think it marks spring this time. It is going to bring somewhat milder weather into the east over the weekend of the, let's see if I can get my dates right, the 6th and the 7th. It's going to be a great weekend from North Carolina all the way to Quebec to get out and enjoy all the snow that's fallen in the month of February. Canaan Valley, West Virginia has had 124 inches of snow in the month of February. Get out and enjoy it. The temperatures are going to be very, they're not going to be warm. They're going to be very comfortable on the slopes of the east this weekend, and also in the Midwest. It's going to be very comfortable there as well. But early next week, the storm will come through the Rockies. The middle of the week, I think a storm's going to run for the lakes, maintain this milder air for a little while, but then the trough's going to cave in behind this storm as it heads off to the northeast, and we will reestablish a colder than normal pattern over much of the east. The exception is going to be right here along the Canadian border, and I think that's going to continue for the next several weeks. And the reason why it's not going to be colder than normal here is when you have a blocking pattern that causes a persistent trough in the east, such as we have seen this year, Canada is usually above normal, and that has been the case. So the temperatures across Canada, as we saw over here in British Columbia, they struggle with the weather throughout the Olympics. This above normal air, it's not really warm, but it is warmer than normal. It's going to bleed into the border states over the next couple of weeks and maintain normal temperatures along the Canadian border. But in the mid-Atlantic, in the southeast, the Ohio Valley, temperatures will be below normal air. Let me make sure I clarify. It will be below normal air. And in the west, I think we're going to revert after this storm early in the week of the 8th. We're going to revert to pretty much a ridge in the west, which will bring benign weather conditions, and we'll be looking for more Pacific energy to come ashore from the west. So we've seen a monumental storm in the east to close out February. The east, the Midwest, the southeast, they're set up for a fantastic March and even April in many cases. The west, I think, is finally going to see a sizable snowfall in places that have been longing for it for many, many weeks, and that's going to come up the week of the 8th. And then we're going to revert to a pattern of a ridge in the west, a trough in the east. And Johnny Mosley and Todd Brooker, if you're out there, we invite you to come east and enjoy all that deep ice. This is Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman. This is another edition of Weather Weenies. Thanks for looking in. Next week we will be in Lake Placid, I think, and we'll talk to you then. No, it's Sugarloaf, Maine, home of Seth Westcott. I'm ahead of myself. We'll be in Sugarloaf next week, and we might be even checking in on the award ceremony they've got planned up there for Seth Westcott, the Border Cross gold medal winner for 2010. Have a great week and get out and enjoy all that new snow. Take care.